So Joe Biden's town hall had a bunch of moments that made me wince. This is probably the worst of them. He's throwing Bernie under the bus and the left under the bus yet again.
Cuban American and Venezuelan voters here in South Florida are being targeted with messages by the Trump campaign claiming that a vote for Joe Biden is a vote for the radical left and socialism and even communism. What can you tell people in my family, my friends, who are understandably concerned with that issue, that would make them feel comfortable voting for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris?
And let me just point out we have about 3 or 4 minutes left.
I look like a socialist. Look, I'm the guy that ran against the socialists. Remember, I got in trouble in the whole campaign. 20-some candidates. Joe Biden was too centrist, too moderate, too straightforward. That was Joe Biden. I have taken on the very people that, in fact, we're worried about. I've taken on the Castros of the world. I've taken on the Putins of the world. I've taken on all these dictators. I haven't cozied up to them. I'm the guy that's been straightforward with them. I'm the guy that let them know it stops here. It stops with me. It stops with me as president. I am no more a socialist than or a communist than Donald Trump is. Well, I won't say it. Anyway. So they need not worry. Just look at the record. There's not one single syllable that I've ever said that could lead you to believe that I was a socialist or a communist.
Before I criticize, I will say this. He's being honest. He's being honest. So for what that's worth, and I do think you get points for honesty, that's the truth, you know? There's no BSing in that answer. That's for sure. He doesn't like the left at all. And so he's like, no, I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist. He's not even like center left. Who are we kidding? But anyway, so I do give credit that he's not like Mayor Pete, where Mayor Pete went around when he first launched his presidential campaign and he gave interviews where he would say, I'm for Medicare for all, and he'd make arguments in favor of Medicare for all. And then as soon as he realized that lane was kind of taken, the left-wing lane was really owned by Bernie Sanders, he went like this. All right, I'm going to try a new strategy and become the exact opposite of what I just was. And so I find that more weaselly. And so I hate Mayor Pete more than Biden, because at least he was never BSing me the whole time. He's just like, yeah, I don't like you. And I don't like Medicare for all. And I don't like socialism or communism. Okay. All right. So we know where we stand. Right. Exactly. Gotcha. All right. Now, few things. When he says at the beginning, like, I'm not a communist, I'm not a socialist. Remember, I was the one who was getting beaten up in the primary debates. You could say that again. They said he's too centrist. They said he's too moderate. They said he's too straightforward. Not a single person in human history has ever criticized you by saying, Joe, you're too straightforward. Imagine that's what like a left criticism of Joe was. Joe, you're being way too straightforward, man. Stop it. That's not a thing. Obviously, that's not a thing. That's ridiculous. He said, all these dictators are the people that I've taken on. I'm the guy who's taken on these people that you're talking about. That's how he frames it. That really is troubling, that in his mind, he hears socialism and he immediately equates it to like evil dictators. That says a lot about him. He's willing to throw in like right-wing authoritarian thugs like Putin and act like that's socialism. That's representative of the left, broadly speaking. That's a problem, man. And I think it shows what he really thinks of the Democratic base, what he really thinks of the actual left in this country and the Bernie Sanders supporters and Bernie himself. He's incredibly smug and dismissive of them, and he views them as crazy. And so, again, this is further evidence that don't expect him to do, the most progressive president since FDR. He's bashing the philosophy of FDR. This guy would lump in social democrats with authoritarians. And this really is messed up, because when you look at what Bernie's been doing, Bernie's been going everywhere around the country, doing rallies for Joe, doing interviews for Joe, really pushing for Joe. Now, Bernie also did that for Hillary, but let's not kid ourselves that he liked Hillary. He doesn't like Hillary. He hated Hillary, but he sucked it up and did it because he thought it was the right thing. he actually likes Joe. And so he's doing this, and he's like kind of enthusiastic about trying to help Joe. And as he's going around the country campaigning for him, doing more campaigning for Joe than Joe is doing for himself, Joe's doing stuff like this in these interviews, in these town halls. So what would have been an acceptable answer? What would have been something that wouldn't have led to me doing a segment on this? Listen, if Joe told the truth up front, yes, I'm not a communist, I'm not a socialist, but then he said something along the lines of, my friend Bernie Sanders is accused of being a bad person simply because he wants to give people health care, simply because he wants to give people education and end the wars. Well, he's my friend, and he's a good person, and him and I might not agree on everything, but we certainly agree we should fix this country, and the demonization of the left has to stop. If he said that, are you kidding me? Actually, let me correct something I just said. It's not that I wouldn't cover that and give him a pass. I would cover that and give him credit. I'd give him credit. And the crazy thing is, there are instances, now, to be clear, Trump most of the time is bashing the left relentlessly and smearing radical, socialist, communist, whatever, right? But remember, at the RNC, they actually did a video that was like Democratic Socialist for Trump. They literally did a promotional video like that, trying to make the argument like, hey, if you're like a disaffected Bernie bro, come with us on the Republican side. Don't do it. I mean, they're crazy and they're lying to you and they hate you and everything you stand for. But point is, there was enough of somebody on the team was smart enough to realize, hey, let's actually reach out. But the way that Biden and the corporate Democrats view the left, and there's a lesson in here too, guys, is they're always going to be there. Where the fuck else are they going to go? They already keep pledging their vote to me, so what do I have to do for them? Dickie McGee's acts. And I could make fun of them and snub them and compare them with authoritarians in a town hall, and there's going to be no repercussions to it. There's an article that just came out the other day. A lot of prominent Bernie supporters are like, man, he's really got to stop bashing us. People are getting sick of this. He knows he has your vote. He knows you're not going anywhere. So of course he's going to keep doing this because he can get away with it. So you see what the problem is when you pledge the vote up front months before the election? He's not going to listen to you. You're a given. You're guaranteed. So who's he going to appeal to? The people who are on the fence, who are in their mind, who do they think is on the fence? Oh, the moderate Republicans. Hence, roll out 1 million moderate Republicans. All of his rhetoric is pro-moderate Republican policies. You see how this works? Which is why I was yelling at Bernie towards the end of the race. I was saying, listen, what you do is you have a meeting with Joe Biden and you tell him, I'm staying in the race unless you agree to certain things. And yeah, is that going to fracture the Democratic Party? Yeah. Might it make it more difficult for you to beat Trump? Yeah. But I'm not going to endorse you and I'm not going to campaign for you. I'll sit out the election if you don't meet some of my policy demands. Here's the list of my policy demands. Here's a list of 10 executive orders that I want you to guarantee me that you'll do within the first 100 days. And I'm going to go public with this so everybody knows, so there's no wiggling out of it. And as I told you guys, in a situation like that, I think they would have cut a deal. They would have cut a deal so that Biden gets the support of the guy who had a solid 30% block of the Democratic base with him. If Biden knew, hey, I might be putting up my middle finger to 30% of the base and they might leave for good, then he might listen. Then he might realize, whoa, we got work to do. Instead, they just did the nonsense Unity Commission, which is all stuff he's going to ignore anyway because he's not on record, he's not on paper, there is no clear set of demands. So yeah, I think that there was a giant tactical mistake from Bernie where he could have, if Bernie had gotten 5 or 10 concessions in the form of executive orders, he could have literally held up a sheet of paper and waved it in the face of a guy like me and said, if you don't vote for Biden, you're leaving this on the table. And I would have felt like an asshole. And I'd have been like, you know what, Bernie, you're right. I see some stuff on that list that really is super important to me. So I think you're right. But he didn't do that. And the left all signed on, got nothing but pats on the head. You know, let's form a committee. Committee? You need a committee to study something where we already know what the goddamn answers are? Like, do people want to be BS'd in politics? Because it looks like they do. So it's depressing. But anyway, so now here we are. Every time there's a town hall, every time there's a debate, every time there's an interview. Hey, socialism, communism bad. What say you, Joe? Yeah, socialism, communism bad. Bro, I beat him. I beat Bernie. I'm not with those people. I'm not with them at all. Vote for me, everybody else. Way to keep reminding the young, disaffected lefties who are struggling to bring themselves to vote for you, Joe. Way to remind them that you hate them. And they're going to be like, okay, I hate you too. I said it before, I'll say it again. He will not stop until every single young, disaffected lefty who votes for him does it with tears in their eyes. That's the goal. That's the goal. So, it's just upsetting. If I was running Joe's campaign, what would I say to them to course correct, to try to make sure they have the left going forward? He's already up big in the polls. And so at this point, he's not going to care because he actually can win without the left. Let's be honest. At this point, the way the polls are and how bad Trump is doing, that's the case. But outside of the advice I already gave in terms of like talking positively about his friend Bernie, I would say you got to take 2 or 3 policies where nominally you're on the right side and really drill it home and make people believe you're for it. So, for example, he's nominally for a $15 minimum wage, Joe Biden is. Now, you might say, whoa, I didn't know that. Right, you didn't know that. You want to know why? Because he never talks about it. You want to know why my suspicion is that he never talks about it? Because he doesn't really believe in it. That's why I don't think he talks about it. I think it's one of those things, yeah, okay, I'll make the concession nominally. And then he never talks about it. It's the same way that Hillary said, like, oh yeah, no, I'm against TPP now. Oh, are you? You just spent a year and a half pushing it relentlessly, and the only reason you did this is because you felt pressure from Bernie and pressure from the left, and you're like, oh, okay, fine, yeah, no, I'm not for that. But she never talked about it. Why? Because she actually was for TPP. I don't think Joe is really for a $15 minimum wage. But if he were to go out there every time he has a speech or every time he does an interview and he keeps bringing up the $15 minimum wage and he really starts acting like he's for it, well, then there's going to be a lot of people who are like, you know what? I think I could vote for him now because he keeps talking about this issue that means a lot to me. But what do we get most of the time? Left bashing, and then the other, most of the time it's nonsense about unity and togetherness and just platitude sandwiches, cliche sandwiches all day, every day, where he really is saying nothing of substance. So anyway, this segment's dragging on far too long here. I'm just babbling at this point, but for the love of God, Joe, stop reminding the left that you hate us.